Hey, welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the "Oh yeah, that's right, it's Women's History Month here in the U.S. edition. Today is episode 229. Let's talk about this 9,000-year-old female shaman burial ground and the oldest known evidence of cats making biscuits. My friends, to be honest, I'm writing the notes to this episode at the end of January, so by the time this airs, who knows if Women's History Month has been repealed and replaced with, I don't know, something like Ram Truck Month. I know. How could I be so silly? Ram Truck Month is already a thing for the month of March. If you're here in the States and watch 5 minutes of anything on the tube of you or on any streaming service with commercials, you might have noticed the endless parade of advertisements about Ram dealerships offering special deals on new Ram trucks for Ram Truck Month. And if you look closely at the fine print at the bottom of your screen, you'll see that the flatbeds are sturdy enough to haul away as many civil rights as you can possibly shove in. Now, I have nothing against Chrysler or whoever squeezes out trucks, but I thought it would be funny to counter being rammed with one of the most badass burial plots from the past 10,000 years. In the first half of the show, we are traveling back to another time and to another country facing unprecedented political change, 1934 Germany. Now, to cope with such disasters, average people tend to resort to simple pleasures, and for folks residing in the countryside of Bad Dürrenberg, it was and still is the coveted time of sauna. In that year, in this place, alongside a picturesque terrace overlooking the east bank of a winding river, ground was broken for construction on a new spa garden. And if it already sounds oh so German, just wait. As a trench was dug to lay the foundation of a massive fountain, bones were discovered. A lot of bones. Now, some of them were human, but some of them were clearly the teeth and antlers of animals. Between the sheer number of artifacts and their positioning being so specific, even the workman who didn't sign up for this and found them was like, oh, this might be someone important. We should probably contact the conservator at the State Museum of Prehistory. My friends, we will dig into the details of this grave. We will go over the years of misinformation and disinformation which swirled around it. We will get into the theories of who she was and why throughout the centuries, people flocked to her burial site. Then after the break, big news. Big news. My partner and I are new childless cat lady parents. So if you haven't seen the update over at the show's old social media stuffs, please do. You'll see that the flock has grown by 2. Deathwish Mike and Mochi Galore. Sometimes they go by Handsome Mike and Lanky Lamooch, but anyway, what I mean to say is that they're each 4 pounds of buttery kitten, and to celebrate, we're going to dive into a recent discovery that'll put a smile on your face. 1,200 years ago, a cat did something very cat. Unbeknownst to a potter who left out their freshly made jug out in the sun before firing it up in a kiln, their feline friend stuck their paws in it. But they didn't stop there. We're going to take a look at some very old and a very tiny piece of pottery. We're going to do the clickety-clack calculations that show that this paw print was actually a cat kneading, and why this random act of coziness is so special to archaeologists. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my toe-beaned business goose. To begin, I'm going to need you to get real comfortable with the idea of being naked and wet around strangers, because we're heading on back in time to a spa town known as Bad Dürrenberg. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who are hesitant to step inside the old time machine, don't worry, I've got you. It'll be worth it, and your skin is going to feel oh so smooth. Please, everyone, imagine Germany. Fantastic. Point to the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see Berlin. It's 1934, so if you need a visual, it basically looks like Washington, D.C. today, or any town where the Proud Boys march freely accompanied by the police. Now, if you will, move your finger south, just a smidge, and to the left. Perfecto. Here we are, in Bad Dürrenberg, which at the time was more of a spa retreat than a modern spa town that it is today. You could actually reach out and touch nature. But if that's not your thing, you can stand along the shores of the River Zala and watch the day pass. On May 4th, 1934, a construction worker was tasked with digging a trench that was to be the base for a grand fountain of a grand spa that was well on its way to being completed on time and within budget. Now, if you drop your loofah and pick up your phone to check out today's post on the old socials, you'll see a newspaper clipping of the completed fountain and a series of photos that are going to blow your fucking mind. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My friends, as the worker began to dig and lay pipe, a number of pale fragments and bits became exposed. It was clear that he'd mistakenly burrowed through a grave, but one that didn't belong from any time period that looked familiar. We will definitely get into the details in a minute, but to handle the situation, a local school teacher was sent in hopes that maybe they could identify the body and what in the holy hell was going on here. But even for the wizened teacher, this was beyond their pay grade. They needed to call in the big guns. Wilhelm Henning, a conservator at the State Museum of Prehistory. Now, this is where I have some good news and bad news. And I'm going to start with the bad news, and then we're going to wash that distasteful shit off with the good news. Let's get into it. First, it appears that the artifacts were removed from the grave before Wilhelm's arrival, so it's unclear exactly how the body and the accessories were arranged. I know, I can see your expression from here. I think it says, that's not great. Did they take any photos, maybe? Well, if you're asking this, how dare you? Of course not. But for real, no photos were taken. It's 1934 and no one had a camera or film at their disposal. It would take another day or two for that to happen. And this spa, well, its construction was on a deadline. And it was to open the next fucking day. You heard me. The spa was to open to the public the following day, and having a deceased body lying around and a gigantic hole in the garden and forensic nerds poking around for weeks, oh, that's just not going to work. So, the scene was cleaned up. The remains were gathered and were to be examined at the State Museum. But thankfully, at least one written account was made. A 2-page paper, like a little report, that included a sketch of the fountain plans and details of the grave as they encountered it. Which leads us to the details. And if you're standing, I'm going to ask you to sit the fuck down because the list is a long one. The figure was buried about 5 feet below the surface and placed within a small tomb whose walls were built from weaved branches forming a lattice pattern. Now, such a production took time and care, and this is merely the first sign that whoever this was highly respected. They faced south and were laid in a sitting position, with the soil around the body filled with red ochre, a natural clay that humans have been using to paint and draw with for the past 300,000 years. At the right arm, a polished axe blade was found, along with a long white cylindrical container made from a crane's humerus bone, which is the upper part of the arm. So please, drop your own polished blade and pick up your phone, tap on today's post, and you're going to see the exact container, and you're going to see what the fuck was inside it. I'll give you a sec. Now, if you said to yourself, that kind of looks like a dozen or so triangular-looking razor blades, if you said that, you're kind of right. According to the State Museum of Prehistory website, 29 microliths were in it, and don't worry, I gave that a Google. Long, and I mean Upper Paleolithic to the Mesolithic period, long story short. I'm talking 50,000 to 10,000 years ago. Microliths were small stone tools made from flint, and they were used for hunting, fishing, or preparing small animals with very precise cuts. For you see, on average, they're just 50 millimeters long or just a wee 2 inches in length. They were also perfect as the heads of arrows and harpoons. Now, around the body, over 140 animal teeth and bones were recovered, including 50 incisor teeth from uryx, which are basically an extinct species of bovine. There were steppe bison teeth, wild boar tusk, red and roe deer antlers. Now, there was evidence of cuts along these bones, suggesting they may have been skinned for garments. But 6 bones were split boar tusks, and 2 of them were pierced. And I want you to put a fancy pants pin in this. In the meantime, yes, there's more. There were 3 cleaned shells belonging to European pond turtles, 120 fragments of freshwater mussel shells, and, quote, isolated elements of a beaver and hedgehog, end quote, from the wiki. Now, I'm not sure what that's all about, isolated elements of beaver. I mean, if you're going to give someone 140 bones and nearly as many mussel shells, just throw in the whole beaver. Like the old saying goes, don't skimp on the beaver. Just toss the whole thing in. Now, as you ponder that wisdom, please swipe past the photo of the microliths, and you're going to see the split bone from a deer, just a random bone. Now, if you swipe past that photo, you're going to see a close-up of the very tip. My friends, if you give that a look, there's faded red ochre right on top, suggesting that it was used as a paintbrush. This collection, so far, is certainly wild, but the piece de resistance can be seen in the next photo. 2 matching antlers belonging to a roebuck. So, what in the hell does this all mean? What is going on here, and who is this person? Now, I can hear you screaming, it's a lady shaman, but my dear innocent business goose, it's not as easy as that. We still need to get through the rest of the bad news, or rather the biased investigations, before we see the light. Thanks to the polished axe, the numerous blades, the number of animal bones, and it being 1934, a familiar time of pseudo-scientific practices and stereotypes, biological anthropologist G. Herberer, it doesn't matter, he's an asshole. Anyway, he took one look at all the burliness and he examined the skull. Yes, I'll say that again, he examined only the skull. And he came to the conclusion that this, my dear gentleman, is a man. Behold, the manliness of it all. But don't worry, it gets worse. It's 1934 Germany, so naturally this definition of a hunter, of a man, was incorporated into Nazi propaganda and played up as evidence as the magnificence of the Aryan race dating back to the Stone Age. Eventually, the Nazis lost, as they always do, and what was known as the Bad Dürrenberg burial was given a second look. Still housed in the State Museum of Prehistory, the human bones were examined in the 1950s, where the first of many, many revelations was about to shock the anthropology world. Let's get on with the good news. It was in the 50s that she was discovered as female, and in the 1970s, with the advancements of radiocarbon dating, we learned that she lived around 9,000 years ago, between the staggering years of 7,000 to 6,800 BC, during the Mesolithic, which is corroborated with by the microliths. Throughout the decades, from the 1990s up until as recently as 2019, thanks to interdisciplinary fields and kick-ass new technologies, this woman's life began to unfold. She stood a wee 5'1" tall, but as we will see, she had an enormous presence on her society. According to the wiki, genetic analysis revealed she likely had a dark complexion with straight dark hair and blue eyes, a common combination among the European population at the time and shared by other Mesolithic individuals. Her bones lack strong muscle attachments, indicating that she was less active than expected for the time period. Whatever signs of wear could be found were to the vertebra in her lower back and her torso. Combined with facets on her leg bones, this indicated that she spent a lot of time kneeling. Let's get into that. My clairvoyant business goose, for the time that she lived, the ritual of leaving a huge store of animal bones may have acted as a food supply for the afterlife. But not all of them may have been used for that. It's time to unpin that pin about her split boar tusks. My fashionable business goose, swipe past the lengthy pair of antlers, and you'll see what experts at the State Office for Heritage Management and Archaeology, Saxony-Anhalt, in Germany, believe what those tusks, those 100+ teeth, those animal skins, and those antlers were actually for. They combined to form one of the most imposing headdresses you're ever going to see. So please do yourself a favor and drop whatever bullshit laundry you're folding. Those clothes just don't compare. Take a look and then burn them. I'll give you a sec. Is that not just kick-ass? I am so glad you agree, but you're probably asking, whoa, what happened here? What's with the headdress? How did we even get to this point? Great question. Researchers reassembled the artifacts based on the practices of shamanism from Siberia and elsewhere in northern Eurasia, and they fit. And that's not the only evidence of her being some spiritual healer. Along with the wear and tear of her lower back, her first cervical vertebra, which connects the spine to the skull, was irregularly shaped and partially fused. This malformation may have enabled her to block blood vessels to the brain by holding her head in certain positions, so she could get herself high, essentially. The lack of oxygen and the pinching may have caused a number of neuropathological conditions such as, quote, itching, burning, or crawling sensations, uncoordinated movements, rapid eye movement, or double vision, end quote. Or, quote, the feeling of snakes or ants crawling on or under your skin. Either of which may have marked her as very different from a young age, end quote, from the wiki and Christina Kilgrove of LiveScience.com. And although she was different, she sure as hell wasn't shunned. She lived to about 30 to 40 years of age in the Mesolithic 9,000 fucking years ago. She had to be part of a community to survive. And the lack of wear and tear on her other bones suggests maybe, just maybe, her tribe came to her with offerings for guidance and being able to see what they believed to be the great beyond. Now, this makes for one hell of a story, but it doesn't end there. Get ready for not one, but two goddamn twists. Those antlers that were dated, I know, this is so fucking crazy. Those antlers that we saw just before, they were dated to around 6400 BC, approximately 600 years after her death, which means 6 centuries later. Her community still kept her presence alive. They buried these antlers as an offering. Who knows? Maybe they believe she still performed her shamanic duties from beyond the grave. And if this isn't enough evidence of her stature, this might do it. Upon one reanalysis of her bones, researchers found something odd about her hands. Remember, she was lying in a seated position with her arms kind of resting on her thighs. Well, between her hands were extra bones, really tiny ones. It turns out they belonged to an infant, 6 to 8 months at the time of death. Now, the remains are barely complete and only a few have survived, but thanks to recent DNA clickety-clacks, we now know that it wasn't her child, but they were related. It was a male who was a 4th or 5th degree relative who, thanks to sharing the same mitochondrial haplogroup, long story short, which is passed along by the mother, this kid was a direct relative. He could have been her great-great-grandson, in which case they were buried at different times, or he may have been a nephew or a cousin several generations removed, which allows for the possibility of them having lived at the same time. Either way is fucking profound, and it shows that the family decided to leave him in her care, together, in the afterlife, with a partial beaver. After the break, we are leaving one problematic place in time for yet another problematic place in time, and we're sticking with artifacts. But this one will get your heartstrings for sure. Biscuits. Next.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but Also buffalo wings, or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from McDonald's, Popeyes, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a hamburger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
And we're back. We are so back. And my delicious friends, we need to talk about biscuits. And I don't mean the delightful treat we humans shove into our faces with abandon. Although there is some kneading involved, I'm talking about the adorable behavior of our feline friends. Our Steuben tigers, aka our living room tigers, aka our house cats. Now, one of many fun facts we're about to dive into, Steuben tiger is a German word you can lovingly call your own pet or a loved one. On occasion, though, when it's appropriate, I call my cats Steubendouches because they're 4 months old at the time I'm writing this and I am exhausted. Feel free to use Steubendouche for your cats as well. Or honestly, for anyone in your home, really. Anyway, I adore them, and I love them, and I adore it when they knead or make biscuits with their two little front paws. Basically, they squish their front toe beans up and down against a soft surface like a blanket or a person's face, alternating between each paw. Now, this behavior mimics the motion of someone kneading dough, and as such, the term stuck. Like Steubendouche. So, what the fuck is going on here? Why do cats do this? Well, according to an interview with Charles Q. Choi of Life Science and Susan Hazel, an associate professor of animal behavior, welfare, and ethics at the University of Adelaide in Australia, the first sign of kneading shows up when kittens need to annoy mom for milk. The rhythmic treading of their paws on their mom's body stimulates the flow. But, and a furry but here, this behavior continues long after kittenhood. Turns out, kneading releases dopamine in the feline cerebellum, which creates a sense of relaxation and relieves stress. That's why you might see this biscuit making right before a cat takes their 6th nap of the day. They're settling in, feeling safe, calm, and riding a kitty high, basically. Oh, and second fact, according to PetMD, wild feline species will sometimes need soft grasses and other bedding materials in their natural habitats as they prepare for rest, end quote. So house cats certainly live up to their Steuben tiger name, as this is a behavior nearly all cats share. There's also another theory. Between their toe beans are scent glands, which can deposit pheromones, so that kneading might be a way to claim blankets and other soft objects, like us, as their own. So, there are lots of possible reasons kittens do this, but no one ever expected the act to be so charmingly frozen in time, like this. Let's get into it. So join me, will you, within a cluttered laboratory at the Department of Land of Israel Studies and Archaeology at Bar Ilan University. We are standing among an overwhelming number of boxes filled with rubble, dirt, and maybe, just maybe, if these archaeologists are lucky, a relic or two from a distant millennia. Archaeologists such as Dr. Raphael Lewis, their colleague Professor Shaman Gibson of the History Department at the University of North Carolina, and Gretchen Cotter, the laboratory director. This team, along with hundreds of others, just completed an equally monumental dig of the southwestern slope of Mount Zion in Jerusalem, a 2,500-foot hill that has seen thousands of years of history, religious wars, and bloody exchanges of power and pettiness since the 10th century BCE. Luckily, all of that has ended. As such, consider Mount Zion a turducken of stratigraphic nightmares. The layers of time here don't sit horizontally, and they're not even in chronological order. So if you come across a shattered dish or an inch or two from a clay jug, you can't assume anything. Every piece needs to be meticulously analyzed to determine what it's made of, what its possible use was, and from what era it was used in and by whom. This kind of work requires the patience of a saint, or rather a laboratory director named Gretchen, who spent hours upon hours sorting what many of us would consider just plain old debris. Well, my friends, if you drop your own jugs and pick up your phone to head on over to our social media stuffs, you'll see a wee 2-inch long brown fragment that has not one, not two, but 5 very distinct marks in a pattern I think that is very distinctive. I'll give you a second. Now, if you said to yourself, holy shit, I'm no laboratory director, but that looks like a cat stuck its claws in this shard of pottery. If you said that, you are right. And it gets better. If you swipe past that fragment, you'll see a black and white rendering that makes those marks and the hidden details way more easier to see. This small paw print, which includes a part of the cat's front leg, suggests that it was lying down near the edge of this newly formed clay jug that was probably sitting in the sun to dry over the days and weeks. At some point during that process, a cat strolled over, stretched out alongside it, placed their paws on this warm, soft object that their owner worked hours on probably, and began to drift to sleep, slowly kneading away in contentment. The paw is an adorable 1.2 inches by 1.2 inches, or 3 by 3 centimeters, while a portion of the arm is just a wee 0.8 inches by 0.4 inches, or 2 by 1 centimeters. It is so tiny. And if you're wondering how old this cat must have been, so did I. So, I measured my 4-month-old Stubendouche's paws, and they were about the same size. I know, I survived. They're about the same size, so possibly, once upon a time, a 4-month-old-ish kitten got into a little trouble near Mount Zion. And speaking of time, Gretchen and the gang did some clickety-clack calculations, and they believe this portion of the jug was made in the 9th century, 1,200 years ago, during the Abbasid dynasty. Nailed it, eventually. It ran from 750 AD to 1258 AD and included this area. It all came to an end following the Crusades and after a final blow after the Mongols destroyed Baghdad. So, in between all the violent back and forth, between whose sky daddy and prophets were more important than the other, there was this one little peaceful scene. And there's good evidence that this really was a biscuit. If the cat had been walking across the clay, we'd see all of its toe beans and a deep impression of each. I've got an example for you over at our social media stuffs. There is a photo of a Roman tile that a cat meandered over. Also, when cats are walking, they don't extend their claws. But when kneading, they certainly do. So, my comfy business goose, not only is this a 1,200-year-old biscuit, this is the only known biscuit in archaeological record. Amazing. The team also identified many small fingerprints on other pottery fragments that likely belong to the potter's children, but honestly, that's not as cute and no one cares. So thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends about the fucking kick-ass 9,000-year-old female shaman burial ground. Happy Female Shaman Burial Ground Month to you and to yours. Tell them about cats have been Stubendouchen for years. And a pointy thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you love the other podcasts in this family, and please, stay interesting.